So, Kevin, my question is this. Since you've been at practice every day, Bowles has been adamant about accountability, earning reps. You know, the guys that are playing well keep playing, correct?
Yes.
So right now, it's fair to say that this team is playing for each other. They're a united group, and they realize that the hard work is paying off in the reps that you get, correct?
I'd agree with that.
Okay. Who's been a better quarterback up until this point overall? Josh McCown.
I'm scared with where you're going with this.
I'm just asking a question. Who's been the better quarterback in practice, McCown or Hackenberg?
Honestly, it's tough to say, man. Like, if you want to just judge it off of, again, having the knowledge of the playbook, knowing where guys are supposed to be, things like that, yeah, I mean, McCown's obviously going to have the intangibles that you expect from a veteran. But as far as the ability to make certain throws, I'm sorry, but McCown cannot make some of the throws that I've seen Hackenberg make in practices recently. You know, there have been a few times where go ahead.
No,
I know you're trying to prove something here. Go ahead.
No, I understand the arm strength, but that's fine. But my question is this. If Todd Bowles tomorrow morning came out and said, you know what, Christian Hackenberg is our starter, would he lose the locker room based on McCown's performance thus far?
I wouldn't say he would lose the locker room, but I don't see why he would make that decision so early. I mean, we still, like you said, we have to see a lot more from Christian Hackenberg, and he's going to have these 2 games to show it. And I agree with you that, yeah, his window is kind of short to show that, and I think, you know, things are leaning towards McCown probably starting week 1.
2.5 quarters? He's going to win this job in 2.5 quarters of preseason play.
Why do you think he's only going to get 2.5 quarters?
Okay, I'll break it down to you. This next game, Josh McCown will probably play the entire first quarter. So what?
Okay.
He'll get the second and third quarter maybe this week. Next week it's over, dude. Next week the starting quarterback plays 2.5 quarters. The starting quarterback. And I understand that, but I don't think all of those reps are going to go to McCown. Christian Hackenberg saw more first-team reps today than McCown did. Okay. And there's 2
now,
more
again,
days of practice.
That's the first time. Today is the first time that it's shifted that way. So it'll be interesting to see tomorrow if things continue in that direction. And I think a lot of it's also going to be based off how Hackenberg plays in week 2, where he's going to get another long look.
But he's getting another long look. So he's going to say he gets 2 quarters, gets a long look. He's running out of time. That's the problem. The third game, the starting team has to play. So there's no more time. Like, you're not going to win a starting job in practice. You're on the field.
I understand. I understand the starting team has to play, but I don't see why Hackenberg wouldn't be included as part of that starting team. He's getting work with the first team right now. I think they're working towards eventually getting him those reps to see if he could be ready for week 1.
So you think, in your opinion, right now, between the next 2 weeks, Christian Hackenberg can win the starting job?
I think he can. Do I think he will? Probably not. I would say things are probably 70.
Okay. Joe, what is your thought on this? Do you think in the next, just based on everything you know, do you think Hackenberg can win the job in the next 2 preseason games? Unlimited, considering he's probably going to be the second string, not the first string.
Yeah, I will agree with Kev when it's in principle he can, and let me tell you why. If he goes out there and just wows you and just starts throwing bombs, like we know he has the arm strength and the ability to, I think it'd be hard to sit the kid on the bench if he goes out there and just throwing bombs and targets, and he's just so accurate that it's ridiculous. But so far from what we've seen, that's not the way it's going to work. You look at some of the things that he did in that preseason game. And it was really dink and dunk, very quick throws. He missed a couple of reads, too. He missed ASJ coming open on a 3rd and 8. And, I mean, it was right there, and he just chose to, bring it down and take off running. There was a couple other things that he missed during that game as well. So unless he really steps up his play, I don't think that he will win the starting job, but I think that he has the chance to compete and win it. But I want to take a second, Kev, because you're there every day. And it's blowing my mind, the mishandling of Bryce Petty. I don't understand it at all. I mean, where do you think he even fits in this quarterback competition? Do you think at this point it's over for him? And that
I was just going to say that. I think it's a possibility. He even said it today, that it's not about the number of reps you get. It's about making something out of those reps. And,
exactly.
With the opportunities that he has been given, he's shown absolutely nothing. I hate to say it, but, he had a couple of good practices in the first week, but, this week especially, he has not looked good. Yesterday was really bad. Sailed a few passes, a couple feet over some receivers. I got picked twice. Really looked indecisive. And, to me today, it started to really look like a two-quarterback race where you were seeing McCown sometimes working with the second-team offensive line and the first-team wide receivers, and then you see Hackenberg, first-team O-line, second-team wide receivers, and they were just really mixing things around a lot with McCown and Hackenberg. And then, Petty would kind of come in and get his reps at the end, which, has been the norm.
Yeah, and that's my question to you is that, and I understand that he hasn't had great practice, but he also has had very little time to even kind of get acquainted with the offense or even build chemistry with any of these wide receivers at all. So I'm wondering how much of an effect in your mind is that having on his play, the fact that he hasn't been out there and got the live reps with the guy, hasn't been able to build any type of chemistry with, within the offense or within the wide receivers or pass catchers that he has out there. And also, do you think that the fact that he knows, look, I have to make a play. I have to do something right now with every single throw to wow them or I'm done. How much, is that having an effect on his play?
No, yeah, I think that's an excellent point you make right there because, when you aren't getting those opportunities to showcase what you have, you are going to press a little bit and maybe try and do too much. And, maybe that's the result of what we've seen the last couple of days where, he has struggled a little bit more than he did in the first week. So, yeah, I would definitely like to see him get some additional reps. I wrote about it last week, but, just the way things are shaping up, it seems like this is just a two-quarterback race now.
Yeah, Petty's done. He's cooked. It's over. The charade is over. He's a training camp casualty. He could get cut. I go two quarterbacks. I keep my boy Romar Morris. But Kevin, the question I have for you is this: you're saying that Christian Hackenberg, in your opinion, has a chance to win the job over the next 2 weeks. My question to you is: will the coaching staff, based on their play calling, allow him to win the job over the next 2 weeks? Or will they remain conservative and continue to kind of move him along slowly and not afford him the chance to win the job?
Well, after the first preseason game, it was kind of, looking like that was going to be the way they were going to handle things. But, these last 2 days in practice, we have seen the offense start to open up a little bit. They have been throwing a few more deep balls. We've seen some of the, more intermediate 15 to 20-yard routes. So I think this preseason game we might start to see him air the ball out a little bit and, let him kind of test what he could do.
But so the question is, in this limited time that he's going to see, will they open up the offense or will they continue to keep him where he's comfortable, just work his progressions and things like that? 'Cause to me, he has to really play well. He's got to outperform McCown, who's going to do his normal thing. He's going to be consistent, which is what he always has been. So will the coaching staff put him in a position to actually win this job, or he's going to be like, listen, we're going to give you a glimpse of what he can do, but he's going to play week 6?
No, I think they'll open things up, but to a certain degree, they want to put him in position to succeed. They want to slowly build his confidence. That's been on record. So I think that's how they're going to handle it. But yeah, you also have to see, if he can start to do those other things to really take the job.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to touch on too is, I just think that this is over. I think McCown's the guy, and I just think this is the direction it's going. It's kind of obvious at this point, but is the overall leadership on this team. And the one really cool thing that we saw at the preseason game was in between the change of possessions, the defensive guys were running. Mo Wilkerson, Sheldon, Demario Davis. They're doing like they're running up and down the sidelines. They're doing things. Are you impressed by just the overall atmosphere and the sense of leadership and just the unity amongst this team?
Yep, and that's something that we've noticed from day one, really, just the camaraderie and how guys are communicating, guys are talking with each other. It's such a different feel from last year. And I even wrote about how, Todd Bowles took that fight, that happened yesterday with Malden and Beecham. And unlike last year with Marshall and Revis, where it was just kind of brushed off as, two Hall of Fame players, that's a good thing. They're anxious to get at it in practice. This year he stopped practice, put everybody on the sideline, stood in midfield, and the team was just doing sprints. And he just stood there watching them, And after it, he gathered them all at midfield, and, he said after practice, he had to let them know why they were running. And, if you got energy to scuffle, you got energy to practice. And, he's taken a different tone with this team, and I think that's going to allow leaders to develop. And, something that, I don't know how many people agree with this, but I think part of why they released a lot of these veterans, and I know people are going to say, Woody Johnson was involved with the, Harrison Decker thing, which, was probably the case, but by clearing all these veterans, you allow other players to kind of step up into those leadership roles. You're not kind of looking over your shoulder. This is Revis's locker room. This is Marshall's locker room. Things are kind of free now for guys to set the culture for the future. And, it's good to see, man. These practices are lively and guys are just getting after it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I definitely think that some of the veterans, mainly, guys like Brandon Marshall, that was pretty much what sold his ticket right there on getting out of here. There was issues with him in the locker room. And it was kind of, hinted at by various guys. I mean, Sheldon Richardson has come out and said it, but, various guys, elsewhere that, hey, Brandon Marshall there was issues there with him in the locker room. So that definitely led to him being released. And I'll agree with you there. And I think that what we're starting to see now is something that we've wanted to see since Todd Bowles has gotten here was, one, the leadership in the locker room starting to grow. Like you said, guys running up and down the sidelines during the change of possession, that's huge because most of these veterans around the NFL, they go, hey, it's preseason, I'm not worried about it. No, these guys are saying, look, it's preseason, but we're preparing. We're going to run every single time. Because, again, we're going to exhaust ourselves a little bit. We're going to spend a little bit of our energy here because we're going to prepare for this season the correct way, and we're going to build the camaraderie. So that was absolutely lovely to see. But during the simple fact that Todd Bowles stopped that practice, had those guys run the gashers, and then brought them together and said, look, like you said, we got energy to fight. We need to have energy to play. That's huge, man, because we've talked about Todd Bowles' lack of leadership within this locker room. We've talked about how he
Wait a minute, Joe, are you giving Todd Bowles a compliment? Wait, Joe.
I am actually.
Are you giving Todd Bowles a compliment?
Stop.
Wait, so now Kevin gave Todd Bowles a compliment, and now you're giving Todd Bowles a compliment? Interesting.
Listen, I give credit. I give credit where credit is due. Okay, I don't just bash people left and right. I give credit where credit is due, and that's huge to see Todd Bowles step up and take leadership of this football team and let these guys know, hey, look, this is business. This is what we need to be doing. We need to stop doing that. Let's get back to football. I love hearing and seeing that as well. But I want to stick to Todd Bowles with you, Kev, because let me tell you something. This defense is flying around, but one thing that I saw was there was change in the defensive scheme. We all questioned, hey, how are we going to get a pass rush? We need guys getting around a pass rush on the inside. Well, Todd Bowles says, hey, look, I can deal some things up in my scheme. We get pass rushers on the inside. We saw Julian Stanford and Josh Martin coming in where our linemen were eating up blockers. What are your thoughts about this new kind of take on the defensive scheme where he's using inside blitzes to kind of get to the quarterback?
Oh, I'm loving it, man. And, the offensive line still to this day, they're just overwhelmed in practice. It's been something that is happening every single practice where, 8, 9, 10 sacks in team drills. It's crazy. And like you said, a lot of those rushers are coming right up the middle, whether it's linebackers or, sometimes they'll send, I think it was McDougal or Jamal Adams. They had sacks today coming around the corner off blitzes. I mean, Bowles is just dialing it up this year. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that, he is confident with, the safeties that he has on the back end, which is something that he didn't have last year. And, I think he's just going to continue to get creative. I saw they did a 4-man package today where they had, I think it was Mo and Sheldon on the outside with Leo and McClendon on the inside. So he's trying to get, all three of those guys on the field at the same time. And, without Sheldon at outside linebacker, which was nice. So, Bowles is going to get creative this year, man. I think he's finally, starting to come into his own as a coach. At least I'm hopeful that he is.
So wait a minute. Let me just – I'm just trying to recap what I'm listening to here because I remember at a time in this offseason I was lectured how Todd Bowles couldn't improve and that he's going to be fired, it's guaranteed, nothing's going to change, blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
and now here we are, August 15th, and now there's the new stuff is in place is making a huge difference. John Morton apparently looks like an upgrade over Shane Gailey, which is surprising. But Todd Bowles has got a firm grasp on his team. Leaders are emerging. Is this the same Todd Bowles we were talking about 3 months ago, Kevin?
Well, again, that's where I think having the young roster, really comes in. You guys brought it up so many times on this show that it just never seemed like Bowles was assertive enough with the veterans. Like he couldn't stand up to them and, put guys on the bench if they weren't hustling out there. And with a young team, I feel like now he's kind of comfortable in doing that. And, it looks like he's finally have the pieces to, run things the way he wants. And, he brought in some vocal assistant coaches, which was definitely needed because, we know how Bowles is. And, hopefully this is going to result in some good things happening this year.
Yeah, but you also, I think, have to give a lot of credit to Mo Wilkerson and Sheldon and some of these veteran players too, Steve McClendon, all these guys, because they're also buying in as well.
Yeah.
Like last year, it was no doubt a divided locker room. That started from the Fitzpatrick nonsense in the off season. But this team, like even Mo Wilkerson, he's taken part of all of it. Sheldon, like everybody from a man from top to bottom is bought in. So I give those guys a lot of credit, man, because they could see these young guys running around yelling like, "Listen, man, I have no time for this. Like I don't want to be a part of this rah-rah and all this stuff." And nobody's saying a word. They've all bought into it.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and that was just about to say, that is huge to me. The fact that the guys that came back, the Sheldon Richardsons, the Muhammad Wilkinsons, seem to have bought in, the Steve McClendons, and that's big because that kind of rolls down to the younger guys as well. When you have veterans that say, look, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it and this is the way that we need to continue to do it to win and be successful in this league, the young guys are going to fall in line behind that as well. So that's awesome to see. But, again, I just want to make sure that, like I said, Todd Bowles, I've been very critical of him in the past. I talked about the 2 years he was here. He looked all over the place, but I'll give credit when credit is due. But I also want to see if this continues into the season as well, because it's going to be a long season this year, and there's going to be frustration. We talked about it. The offense, it looks decent in the first preseason game. The first drive, it looked decent. But there were some issues later on where we were stalling in certain drives. So what happens this year when maybe the defense is out there for a long time, for many quarters where they're getting gassed and getting tired, and maybe our offense struggles a little bit? There may be a little bit of issues between the offense and the defense. I want to see how Todd Bowles handles that. So before we just start throwing bouquets and saying how Todd Bowles is going to be coach of the year, I want to see how he continues this going on throughout the season.
No, I agree. Listen, as Hackenberg has improved, I think Todd Bowles has improved. I think the coaching staff that he's put in place, former players, is paying huge dividends for him. But Kevin, going back to some of the players on the field, and I know we have phone lines, all kinds of other stuff going on, but a couple guys I want to talk to you about. And the first one is Dexter McDougal, who we've written off probably 35 times in his career as a Jet because he's either hurt or struggling, whatever else. He comes to camp in phenomenal shape, and he's making plays. And do you think he's a candidate not only to make the roster, but push for playing time?
No, I absolutely do. And, I think that there's a reason that this regime has, kept him on the team for so long in spite of the fact that he hasn't been able to be on the field. They obviously see some talent there. And, he did play a little bit in the slot against Tennessee. And, if he could fill that role, then, that could possibly allow you to save some money and, on Buster Screen and, put that money elsewhere, whether it's, in 2018 or bringing in help at fullback, another punter, receiver, something like that.
Could McDougal and the emergence of these younger players like Derek Jones, I love, man. I know every day he makes a play. From day one, I've liked everything he brings to the table. Can the emergence of all these young guys spell the end for Buster Screen?
I really do. I've been saying that since, the beginning of the offseason, really, because it didn't make sense to me at all why you could have a team with Buster Screen as your second highest paid player, and you decide to release Decker before you release him. It baffled me right from the beginning. And, I personally have never really been too impressed with Buster Screen. Today he did make a couple plays, but, he's just a guy that he makes a lot of penalties and, he got burned quite a bit last year. So I'd much rather take a chance with guys like Burris and a few of these other young kids.
Yeah, and the other position that is taking a lot of notice right now is, I know you've been writing a lot. I've been writing a lot too, man. NYJetsFans.com. Everybody who listens, go check out this website because we're both writing like crazy, and there's a lot of good content on there. Is the outside linebacker position, and we're all fans of Malden. He's been on the show several times, but he was hurt. He came back. He got a little nicked up today, but he's still playing. But the emergence of all these other guys, man, we mentioned, you got Julian Stanford, Josh Martin, even Freddie Bishop, but he got a little banged up. Dylan Donahue, all these guys. Is Malden going to struggle to keep his starting job?
I think so, man. Because right now I would actually say that Josh Martin probably looks the best of that entire group. He was flying around in Tennessee, and every practice he's doing something. We haven't really seen too much of Malden aside from, him throwing that punch at Beecham yesterday, and, that's not really a good look. So, Donahue finally got back on the field today, but two guys that were working with the trainers, it was Beltray and Bishop. They were out today. I don't think they got any team reps. I saw them stretching with the trainers early on. So
yeah, it's interesting, man, and it's just like I said, we're all fans of certain players for whatever reason, but it's like, listen, man, if it's all about accountability, earning reps, it's impossible to ignore Martin. It's impossible to ignore Julian Stanford. And to be honest with you, one of the most impressive players that I've seen and most improved players is Demario Davis. Dude, the guy looks faster. He looks more physical. He looks more vocal. He looks a lot more comfortable. Like, it's just like, I don't know if it was, playing in the shadows of David Harris, if it was he had to just resurrect his career, whatever it is. Dude, Demario Davis is a completely new player.
He is just flying around the field every practice, man. And, when they send him on a blitz, he is just lighting running backs up left and right. I mean, it is awesome to watch with him. And I think he's also, kind of taken Lee under his wing. I know a lot of people were concerned when Harris got released that, you got rid of that leadership. Well, I don't think that you lost anything in that department with Davis. So I think they're going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating, man. All these different – it's like certain positions that we assumed were, like, locked up. Like, we kind of assumed that Molden's spot was going to be locked up. Kind of assumed, like, hey, Buster Screen wasn't cut 2 months ago. He's kind of locked up, and now it's like he's not. I mean, I think they could both lose their jobs, and I think Screen's roster spots up for grabs. The only other question I have for you is why aren't the Jets bringing in a competition for punter? Like Joe and I have talked about this since last year because he sucked. When he shanked that punt on Saturday night, I wanted to take my chair and beat him over the head because how many times have we seen that? Joe, seriously, how many times have we seen? He's only a rookie, and we saw how many shanked punts. We saw the same goddamn thing again this Saturday. Why not? Somebody tell me why we can't bring in competition for him. Just give me a reason.
I have talked about this. You have talked about this.
It's ridiculous.
We have talked about this all season. That look, Lachlan Edwards, does he have a leg? Yes. Is he talented? Yes. Is he consistent? No. we talked about it time and time again. He had some solid punts in that game as well. Comes right back, shanks a 14-yarder. And then that's it. Just give him great field position. I mean, I don't understand why they haven't brought in another punter, but it's about time, yo. It's time for you guys to get it together, bring in another punter, and bring in competition for this guy. Because, look, if there's somebody out there that's going to be more consistent, then we need to bring that guy in. We can't have Lachlan giving us, 1 or 2 punts or, 3 punts out, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's shanking punts left and right. And then he'll go off and maybe give you one more punt decent, and then he'll shank more left and right, especially if we're talking about the factor. We've all kind of hinted at the fact this year that our offense, may struggle a bit. We're going to have to lean on our special teams and our punter being solid so that it could back our defense up and not give other teams great field position. That's just something that needs to be looked at, and I just think it's ridiculous that no one's been brought in yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just – and just to continue with special teams, listen, that shank punt on Saturday, the minute he came back to the sideline, Mike McCagny should be on the phone. We need competition for him because clearly this position is not locked up. But the other one is Ross Martin and Chandler Catanzaro. And prime time, to me, I think this competition is already over.
Oh, it's over.
And listen, we could say that, Ross Martin's got to kick. Ross Martin's got to do it in the field. Catanzaro can't kick in practice. He's been terrible in practice.
No. Yeah, he's been brutal in practice. I mean, yesterday he missed, I think it was 3 of 6, including a 25 and a 40-yarder. And Martin's just been drilling them left and right, including from like 55 with a few extra yards on it too. So I think this competition is done already.
Yeah. I mean, look, Catanzaro was butt cheeks when he was with Arizona. He had a suspect year. I'm not surprised at all. Like I said, everything to me with Martin is, can he do that when you're in the heat of the moment and the lights are on, when you're in front, of everybody, when you've got another team trying to come and block your kick, when you're in front of everybody in the stadium, can you do the same things? And if he can, then he's going to win this kicking job easily because I've seen it, I've read it. This dude is, he's 6 for 6, and Catanzaro is just absolutely struggling out there on the practice field. I mean, this guy can't even hit 25-yarders by himself. So it is what it is. He might already have it locked up, but he's got to be consistent and do that on game day. But I wanted to just go back really quickly to this argument about Screen. And look, I get it. You guys like McDougal, and he's out there flying around. But don't we say that every single year about McDougal? Don't we say the same thing? Oh, he's out there flying around in camp. He's making plays. Yeah, bye-bye if he gets hurt again. Okay, look, before you guys start throwing your eggs in the basket of McDougal, let me remind you, this guy's been hurt often here. Okay, this is a guy you cannot trust to stay healthy. So until he's consistently healthy here and out there consistently making plays, I'm not going to say that McDougal's going to run up and take the spot of Buster Skrine. Not at all. And I like Derrick Jones. I think the kid has shown flashes. He's raw, though. He's out there making plays in camp, but he got cooked in that game against Tennessee on a couple plays. One of the plays, he's lucky that, the guy didn't catch the football because he was gone easily for a touchdown. So I think there's still some things as far as with him technique-wise that he still needs to work on. But, again, he was a late-round draft pick, and he's a guy that's pushing to make the roster. I do think that he'll make the roster, and I definitely think that he'll battle. But saying that he's going to take Buster Skrine's spot is really tough for me to hear due to the fact that if you watch Buster Skrine in that game, he played solidly, almost came up with an interception too. So I think before we start throwing Buster out the door, I think we need to look at some of the things that he can do in the scheme, and we also need to talk about how last year he was kind of mishandled and misused. He was asked to do things that is not within his skill set and put in positions that are not within his skill set either. So I think that's kind of a tough play to pull on him, but I think that he'll rebound this year and play extremely well. What are your thoughts on that, Kev?
He struggled in practice too, though. Again, Kevin, tell him.
No, I mean, he's had his ups and downs like every other guy. I mean, I just don't feel like for the money that he's getting paid, there's enough of a separation in talent, between guys like him and Burris or Roberts. I just don't see him as that number one or even really a number two corner.
Wow. Well, I mean, he's basically in the slot most of the time anyway. That's pretty much where his fit is. So, I mean, I hear you about the money, but, I mean, hey, we paid the guy. We talked about that when we signed him. But I think he's a solid slot corner. I think if he's put there and asked to do those things, especially within some of the blitz packages that we saw Bowles use him within, early when he was here, when he first got here, I think he can still be effective. The cash, though, does make you question. But, again, that was the deal they signed him to. But I want to talk to you about this fullback position, man, because this is something I've talked about time and time again, the usage of the fullback in the passing game. Are you surprised that a guy like Fisker is really popping up and just showing out on tape and catching the football out there?
I mean, personally, like from what I've seen in practice, I haven't seen really either of them, separate themselves. Talking about Ferkser and Hauser. To me, they've kind of just looked the same. They'll make a few plays here and there. They've both had a couple drops in drills. Neither has really shined. I personally think that McCagnon's probably going to look at the waiver wire, when some players get released and possibly bring in, some big bruising fullback that can help them out a little bit in the run game, because I think that's ultimately what they're going to lean on a little bit this year, especially if Hack does eventually get the job like we all want him to.
Yeah. How much of an impact do you think that special teams will have on that position as well? Because we talked about it. Look, to make the roster here, you got to do, more than one thing good. You have to be, you have to be multidimensional. You have to be able to do a couple things here. When you look at Fisker, I mean, he's a guy that's decent on special teams, but Hal Zier is a guy that we've raved about. This is a guy that was a special teams demon for us last year. So do you think that possibly could give him the edge, since none of them have really kind of separated themselves in your mind?
No, yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that would probably give Hauser the edge, just because, he's been around a little bit, and he's been a part of the system, and he has contributed on special teams before. So, certainly if he could fill a role there, then, yeah, that would give him the advantage.
Okay, and the last but not least is the wide receiver position, which has become fascinating because Robbie Anderson obviously looks like he's going to be their number one target. A little bit inconsistent. He has some drops still, but he can make the big play. After him, it's a lot of, you saw Ardarius Stewart with that stiff arm that just drilled the dude. Yeah. Chad Hansen had a big practice today. But the one guy that keeps sticking out, in my opinion, is Chris Harper. Gabe Marks got hurt, which is unfortunate. But what is your take on Chris Harper, Kevin?
Yeah, Chris Harper is just one of those guys. He shows good athleticism. He just finds ways to get open, Gabe Marks is somebody that I was really, really high on. He finally got back on the practice field today. Didn't really do too much. Chad Hansen was the guy I was going to single out, because he had a couple really nice catches today. The one thing I worry about with him is you can kind of see it when guys get physical with him at the line. He has a little bit of a tough time getting off, and that's where I don't think Stewart's going to excel. You saw that stiff arm. He loves getting after it with guys. So I think Stewart's going to have a big role in this offense. They've already done like a few gadget plays and some end arounds, with him involved with that. And, Robbie, since that injury to Quincy, man, Robbie has just been showing out in practice. He has just turned it on to a different gear. He's making big plays, and he genuinely does look faster than he did last year. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this role. I was a little bit concerned when it first happened, but, these last few practices going up against Claiborne, he's been making some plays.
So before we let you go, if you had to pick the two players that have impressed you the most, one on offense, one on defense, this entire camp up until this point, who would you pick?
Ooh, okay. On offense, I'm going to get on the train with everybody else, with Justin and you, and go Ramar Morris, just because, you watch him on returns, he is just blazing quick, and, if the offensive line creates a hole, he hits it in a second, and he just explodes through it, and you kind of said it on the sideline. Thank you. You kind of said it when we were talking on the sideline. If he could be just like a mini Darren Sproles kind of guy for us, I mean, that would just be amazing. And so, I'll go him there. And on defense, I think I got to go with Julian Stanford, man. This kid has just been playing at a different level this year. I watched him a lot last year. He showed it in sparks, but, every play, you notice him flying around this year. So I like what I've seen from him.
Awesome. Well, Primetime, once again, thank you for all your insight. And you've been killing it, man, with your articles on NYJetsFans.com. So we appreciate your insight. And are you ready for the McCown era, man? Jets, Buffalo, in Buffalo, you're going to be there, man. You're going to be there to watch McCown beat the Bills. Are you ready?
And you're going to be there, too.
No, I'm not going to be there. No way. Dude, you have a better chance of seeing 10 reindeer go there than me. I'm not going. But are you ready for the McCown era is my question.
Oh, God. I was so excited for the show tonight, and then, you just killed my mood with that McCown monologue that you started with. So if it ends up being him, I just hope it's not going to be for any more than 3 or 4 games, because, that's where you really start to worry if this becomes something like 2015 with what happened with Fitz, and, that would just be the worst-case scenario.
Yeah, no, I think that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. But Primetime, good stuff as always, man. Enjoy our callers, and I've been launching out tweets for you, so have some fun with that, too.
All right, awesome. Great. Can't wait to see what I'm about to open up.
All right, later, man.
All right, later.